Hi, and welcome to a new series that we started called Scoop on the Gloop, where we ask people to tell us about their favourite product, and I have a look at the ingredient list and the marketing concept and see what I think about it from a professional point of view. And our first guest is Samantha, who, so Samantha, where are you from? What do you do?
I'm based in Worthing, and I've been with Collins Cosmetic Consultancy since last year. So
That's where I've seen you.
So as you know, I am not from this sector, the cosmetic industry. And so one of the first things I remember wanting to ask you when I started here was to bring in my favourite product and say to you, can you explain to me what the ingredients are? What do they do? Do you think it's a good product? And we're finally getting around to do that. So the product in question is Olay Total Effect 7-in-1, and it's their moisturiser and serum duo. And I think you've got the ingredients list with you there, haven't you? And I've already told you what my questions are. So shall I talk about why I liked it to start off?
Yeah, what appealed to you about it in the first place?
Yeah, so when I found this product, it's getting on now I've used it for a long time, it must be at least 10 years. And my criteria for a moisturiser was it must have SPF. Now, we can talk about whether that's changed now and whether people like to have them separate, but for me, it must be in there. And so the product has SPF20. Again, we can say if that's good or high enough. I like the fact that it was 7-in-1. It seemed to have a nice variation of ingredients that me not knowing much recognised. I could recognise vitamin C, vitamin E, niacinamide, which is a big favourite among many people I know. And I carried on using it because of what the benefit I was seeing. I used to have very oily nose, and I felt like it blotted that, and I felt like after daily use the oil production wasn't even happening anymore. Made the skin soft, had a bit of a blurring effect. You could say it felt a bit like a primer or a perfect makeup base, whilst being all in one, just having one thing on the shelf, not being too heavy. So I do stand by the fact that I've liked it for 10 years, but obviously now might be a time to reevaluate, depending on what you say.
If something's working, it's usually an idea not to do too much about it, really, just to flow with it. My first thought when you drew it to my attention was 7 effects.
Now, yeah, and we probably can't even between us count what they are, so that's probably definitely a marketing thing.
Is there not a list of them on the pack?
It is, yeah. We'd have to bring up Google while we're on this meet to remind ourselves what they are. I think it does say something about wrinkles, pore refining of the pores. I remember they stand out, but yeah, it does list them on the packet.
I'm pretty sure the number of 7 was picked because of its sort of cultural and mystical significance. You know, there are 7 moving bodies in the sky, aren't there? Which is why we've got 7 days of the week all named after a god. It's quite a sort of deeply ingrained thing. You know, you go to 7th heaven, don't you? Don't go to 6th heaven, and things like that. So I'm pretty sure there wasn't a day when the marketing people said, "Well, okay, boffins, how many benefits have you come up with?" And they said, "Well, 1, 2, 7." It was the number of 7 benefits was predetermined before anybody put a chemical into a beaker, I think. As for the question about SPF, well, the answer is there's no doubt about it. Sunlight damages your skin, and the less sunlight your skin is exposed to, the younger it will look. And so taking that to its illogical conclusion, you should slap SPF on yourself every time you go anywhere near a light bulb. But I don't think that's really true. I think the law of diminishing returns sets in a long time before most of the SPF values we hear bandied around. I mean, SPF 15 is pretty damned strong as an SPF value. What 15 means is that if you suffer from sunscreen, you can stay out in the sun 15 times longer. So if you go red after an hour in the sun, which is, my skin tone is sort of very much that end of the scale, about an hour in bright sunlight and I'm beginning to turn red. With an SPF 15 cream, in theory, I can stay out for 15 hours and get the same effect. Now, 15 hours is a hell of a long time. And also, it's based on a sort of set of assumptions. So the SPF is worked out by exposing people once to a certain amount of radiation. In reality, if you went out with a much lower SPF but applied it more regularly, I think you get a better sun protection.
So what you're saying is there's no problem with having the SPF in the same product as the moisturiser, and it probably is a good enough level, but I remember saying to you before, what about
totally over the top level?
Well, what about the actual ingredients that contribute to the SPF? Because I remember saying to you, is zinc oxide and titanium dioxide the things to stick with? Because I know there's two ingredients at the top of that aren't those, are they?
But basically the answer is that both chemical sunscreens and physical sunscreens, they are not making the moisturiser more pleasant to use. So if you've got an SPF 20 moisturiser compared to an SPF 2 moisturiser, almost inevitably the SPF 2 moisturiser is going to be more pleasant to use. And if you're applying it to your skin regularly through the day, you want it to be nice to use. When I occasionally formulate sunscreens for myself, I always go for very, very low values of SPF. And I've got pale skin. I can tell when the sun is damaging it, and I know that I don't need much in the way of SPF to protect it to the level whereby I can't see any sun damage. In fact, you don't even need to see it, do you? If you're out in the bright sun and you've got pale skin, you can actually feel the sun sort of beating down on you. You want to get into the shade. But very, very little SPF is required to overcome that. So I think the whole thing we've got where everybody uses high SPFs, and the SPF 20 is enormous. SPF 30, imagine, that means you can stay out in the sun 30 times longer than you would do without it. I mean, apart from the North Pole, when are you going to get enough sunlight to make that useful? What
do you think of the specific SPF ingredients in this Olay product?
Right. Well, there's quite a few of them, which there needs to be. Let's say if they've given the formulators the job of achieving SPF 20, they've made their life challenging. The ones in there, they're ethyl salicylate, homosalate, butyl methyl dibenzoyl methane. I can always say that, can't I? Octocrylene. Octocrylene isn't a sunscreen, but it boosts other sunscreens. So that's basically the most of the sunscreen activity in there.
And are they sunscreen chemicals that we would normally want to avoid, or is that?
I personally don't like them. The reason I don't like them is they're complex organic molecules, and they absorb UV radiation, which breaks them down into smaller smaller molecules. I just don't like doing that because you're never really sure what's going on. And there's also the fact that they're absorbing UV light at one radiation and re-emitting it as well. It might not be at a wavelength that's noticeably harmful to you as a skin operator, but I don't think that there's no evidence that they're harmful, but I just rather not. So I prefer the physical sunscreens, and they're in here as well. They're down a bit further down the ingredient list, but actually saying there's only one of them. There's titanium dioxide, and the zinc oxide and titanium dioxide are physical sunscreens that work by reflecting the light. Now that's like basically putting a protective layer of reflective material on your skin. I think there's no way that's not safer than the chemical sunscreens. Chances are the chemical sunscreens are safe enough, but
Yeah.
the physical ones, I'm pretty sure they are safe.
Okay. So what about looking at some of the actives that I said I was experiencing? So, for example, the absorbing of the oily skin. What can you see any ingredient in there that you think might be behind that?
Yeah, sure. They've got well, actually, there's three. They've got tapioca starch, aluminium starch, which is basically tapioca starch with some aluminium put in there to make it flow a bit more easily, and nylon 12. And those are basically going to be putting an absorbent powder onto your skin, which will soak up some of the oil, and also it'll get into the creaks and the crevices in your skin and make your skin look smoother and more sort of reflective, and therefore sort of younger looking and fresher looking. So
what about the aluminium? Is that bad that that's in there, or am I getting confused with there's marketing out there now where people are talking about underarm products more so, and they should have the metals removed, go for a product without aluminium?
Yes, I mean, aluminium is linked to Alzheimer's disease in some quite old studies. I think the more recent studies have suggested the link isn't anywhere near as strong as previously thought, but ultimately aluminium is bad. It's just a fact of life that metal ions like that are not good in large quantities. But having said that, it's very unlikely that you're going to get anywhere near a serious dose from an underarm antiperspirant containing aluminium, simply because the level of exposure is so low compared to your body weight that it's just not worth calculating. In the case of an underarm deodorant, you might be looking at maybe 10-12% aluminium in some of those, which is quite a high. The amount of aluminium in aluminium starch in a product like this is going to be trivial. It won't even be 1%. It won't even be 0.1%. It'll be a trace. So its toxicity is just not an issue and not to be worried about.
Okay.
In fact, I don't know off the top of my head actually, but I think you actually need a certain amount of aluminium. I'm not sure. Maybe not. But traces of metal ions are often beneficial, and they're certainly not harmful. High levels of metals in general is bad, and some are particularly bad, aluminium being one of them.
So looking at the ingredients list, is there should we fit in one more thing? Is there one more thing on there you want to talk about? Anything that catches your eye?
Well, I'm interested that they're using niacinamide, and that's one of the higher ingredients on the ingredient listing. You know that ingredient lists are very roughly in order of the proportion in the product. So they've got a fair old whack of niacinamide in there. Niacinamide does have a very good effect on skin tone, and this is something that's noticeable to people who use it. You can use a product with niacinamide in and notice that your skin's got a more reflective and nicer appearance, and there's clinical evidence to support it as well. So that one's pretty well established, and it gets used a lot. There's plenty of products with niacinamide.
Yeah, there's so many people that I mean, am I right in saying that I think I read somewhere Olay were one of the first brands to really use niacinamide in their products? I did read that one time.
I don't know. I'm sure Olay would be very happy for people to believe that. Olay are owned by Procter & Gamble, who are one of the biggest skincare companies in the world. They're probably the biggest skincare company in the world, actually. So if anybody was the first to use it, there's a good chance it would have been Procter & Gamble. But there are many skincare brands out there, and I'm sure there are plenty of other companies who would probably claim to have been the first people to use it, all the pioneers.
Yeah.
It's been around as long as I can remember, so it's not a new idea, but it's certainly got a lot of publicity recently.
So what's your overall thoughts before, as we close our first session?
Well, so what a lot of actives. I mean, I think as products go, it's got a nice skin feel. It's well presented. The marketing is good, and there's quite a lot of good stuff in it. I do wonder whether you really need that much.
That's I think the conclusion, I think, for me and maybe other skincare. If there's other people watching this like me, I mean, when I went to uni and I had my student loan, a lot of it went on Boots. I'd go into Boots. I love trying new skincare products, and I know how many people out there are like me, and so much more. You know, I've toned down, and that's an interesting point you've raised to finish on. In that, I stand by the fact that I really loved the product. I'm now looking at, do I always need these things?
Yeah. I think from your skin's point of view, it's probably like this is sort of like a nice, tasty night out with a nice meal, and you know, with plenty of sensory experience and lots of content, but not on a daily basis. I wouldn't have said.
No.
Quite apart from anything else, if you put niacinamide on your skin and it improved its appearance, it's not going to get any better if you put more on until it's got worse again. So
yeah,
it's I would say this is an occasional treat for your skin rather than a regular day in day out fun. Much as, you know, Christmas dinner is a once a year event, you don't have it every day. You know, that's my opinion. But
okay. Well, I'll look forward to going through whatever we choose next week.
Okay, and I think what we'll do is we'll put something down there in the bottom bit of YouTube, inviting people who've got favourite products they want us to talk about to make suggestions, and we'll see if anybody else has got a
absolutely. Yeah, we'll look out for your suggestions, and then we'll do this exactly what we're doing now. We'll do it again.
Okay, great. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thanks very much.